Murray, I have just a couple of questions. Mr. Kennedy, we had testimony at a March 214 hearing from two financial aid directors who said that federal laws and regulations prevented colleges from requiring financial counseling. One said institutions are not allowed to require additional counseling for disbursement. We can offer it, but we're not allowed to require it without the ability to require it. There's no teeth in it. Do you agree with that, or do you find our rules and regulations in your way as you try to step up your counseling efforts?
Mr. Chairman, I feel what we've done with financial literacy, kind of adding on to it, we haven't made it required, but we've had great participation in that. So we haven't been hindered, I think, in our efforts with those regulations. But I think it should be strongly encouraged with our success that any type of additional counseling is very much needed. And
do you think you should be prohibited from requiring it?
I would say no. I think whatever we can do, I would strongly encourage.
Yeah. Thank you. Among the things I heard today, the importance of counseling, the importance of clear information, the importance of reducing complexity as a way of releasing this army of people who could advise on other things. I thought I heard general approval of the year-round debt, the year-round Pell to help speed students through more rapidly, and in fact, hopefully reduce the cost of college if you get in the workforce more rapidly. One senator mentioned, we loan money to big banks at 0 and to students at 4.29. That's not exactly right. We loan money to banks. The Federal Reserve loans money to banks overnight at near 0. We loan money to students for about 10 years at 4.29. I think it's also important to go back to where I started. The message that always comes through at these discussions is how much more we'd like to do, because it's never easy to pay for college. Never comes through quite as clearly how affordable things are. I mean, if you're a low-income student in Tennessee, community colleges or if you're any kind of college graduate, a high school graduate in Tennessee, community college is free. If you're a low-income student in any state, community college is free or nearly free. If you're a 4-year student at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, 75% of your tuition is typically covered by student aid. And the president of Georgetown pointed out that even if you want to go to one of the so-called elite universities and you're willing to borrow $4,500 a year and work 10 to 15 hours a week, the university will pay for whatever your family can't, and that the average student loan is about the same as the average car loan. So all that information suggests that to most students there's a way to go to college. The last thing I'd want to discuss a little bit before we conclude is I think we have Alexander's going in different directions here. Dr. Alexander would have the federal government require states to spend money on higher education. I'd go just the opposite direction. I would say the federal government ought to stop requiring states to spend money on Medicaid. And I know anecdotal evidence and sometimes as good as research, but I've had a vantage point that's pretty unique. I mean, I've been a governor in the 80s and a university president and a secretary of education. Now I'm here. And I've watched Medicaid spending in Tennessee go from 8% to as high as 33% of the state budget. And I've made up those state budgets. And what we did was we took money from higher education and put it into Medicaid. And I resisted that, and during the time I was there, we increased funding for higher education more than any other state for 3 years, but it was a struggle even in the 80s. So this isn't anything very recent. And the reason for it is very simple. The federal government defines what the Medicaid benefits are. It mandates what states should do about them. The states have to pick up 30, 40, 50% of the cost, and the percent goes from 8 to 30% in Tennessee. And it's exactly true that the reduction, that as state support for the University of Tennessee or LSU goes down, or California, tuitions go up. But I believe it's exactly true that as Medicaid mandates get stiffer, tuition goes up. And if I were the governor of Tennessee still, I would be saying the reverse, Dr. Alexander. I'd be saying, give us more flexibility, give us fewer federal definitions and fewer maintenance of efforts, and let us put the money where the priorities are. And my priority was on higher education. Our current governor is on higher education. He's the one who made community college free in Tennessee, which really doesn't cost very much money, actually, because it's almost already free for every low-income student. So why would you, Dr. Alexander, I'll ask you this, why would you adopt a policy of more federal mandates when it's federal Medicaid mandates, in my opinion, that have basically caused the higher tuition fees at LSU, Tennessee, University of California, and every other state institution in the country?
I think 2 points I'd like to make with regard to that. By the time you get that behemoth turned around and get that tackled, we'll have 15 states that'll be out of public higher education business that will not be funding a single penny of higher education, from Colorado to South Carolina to Louisiana to Iowa. The second point is that we did have 48 governors against us 10 years ago when we proposed the maintenance of effort provision through the National Governors Association was completely against it. We got Governor Schwarzenegger to be neutral on it. And as that went forward, within the 6 months to a year, those maintenance of effort provisions mattered to 20 states immediately. So our response to the National Governors Association was, if this was such a bad idea, why did it work so well? And why did our states only cut their budgets to where the federal penalty kicks in? So the effectiveness, that period is the only time of fiscal stability we've had with our state governments. And without some kind of federal support, without a redesign of how we're using federal funds to at least encourage states to stay in the game, I think it'll be well too late at the end of the day for our states. They will bow out. And I think it's my responsibility to do everything I can to fight for the next generation of students, as others have done for an aging population in healthcare.
Yeah, well, I'm completely opposed to a federal maintenance of effort for higher education. I think that, if you have that, you might as well just have the federal government take over all the states. Wouldn't be anything left for governors or legislators to decide. And so I would respectfully disagree and say that my goal would be to increase flexibility in the spending of Medicaid funds and allow states to take that money and put it into higher education, because for 30 years I've watched it go the other way. But we've had a lively debate in this committee about that ever since I've been here, with very different opinions about it, and we've had a good one from the panel today. It's been very helpful. If any of you have additional